You have been in that meeting before. The one where someone talks over you like you said nothing. Where your idea gets ignored. And 20 minutes later, someone else says the exact same thing. And the room lights up. You sat there. Quiet. Maybe you smiled. Maybe you looked down at your notes. And inside, something tightened. Not just frustration. Something older than that. The feeling of being seen as less than what you are. And the worst part is not the moment itself. The worst part is what happens after. You go home. You replay it. You think about what you should have said. What you should have done differently. To make them see it. You build a whole case in your head. A case for your own worth. To a jury that was not even paying attention. I want to tell you something that took me a long time to actually believe. That feeling you are fighting against. That need to correct the record. To be seen accurately. To make sure they know what you are capable of. That feeling is the trap. And the people who figured that out early. The ones who stopped fighting it completely. They became the most dangerous people. In every room they ever walked into. Not because they were louder. Not because they were smarter. Because they understood something almost nobody teaches. Being underestimated is not a problem to be solved. It is a weapon. And most people hand it back before they ever learn how to use it. You ever notice something? The people who walk into a room and immediately tell you who they are. The job title. The achievement. The thing they built last year. You believe them right away. But here is the strange part. That is also the last time they ever surprise you. Because you already have the whole story. There is nobody else they could turn out to be. Now think about someone else. Someone who barely says anything about themselves at all. Asks you questions instead. Listens in that way that feels almost too attentive. You walk away from that conversation. Not knowing much about them. But thinking about them anyway. That is not an accident. That is what happens when someone refuses to hand you the full picture. Your brain does not like an incomplete picture. So it keeps working on it. Keeps wondering. Keeps leaving the door open for something unexpected. That is worth more than any first impression could ever be. Marcus Aurelius ran the most powerful empire on earth for almost 20 years. He could have made damn sure everyone understood exactly how sharp he was. Instead, people who actually spent time with him kept saying the same thing. He kept surprising them. Not because he was performing depth. He just never bothered performing at all. He was the same in private as he was in public. And that consistency did something no performance ever could. It made people curious. Because he never made it easy to figure him out. Think about the people in your own life you cannot stop thinking about. Not the ones who impressed you on day one. The ones you are still chewing on weeks later. Something they said once, almost in passing. You are still turning it over in your head. That is not charisma. That is what happens when somebody stops explaining themselves and just lets the work do the talking. Most people never get there. Not because they do not want to. Because the urge to correct how they are seen is. Somebody underestimates you. You feel it instantly. In your chest. Maybe your jaw tightens a little. And the very next thought shows up. almost on its own. I need to fix this. I need them to know who they are actually talking to. That urge feels like strength. It is not. It is the fastest way to hand your peace of mind to a stranger who was not even trying to take it. Think about what is really happening in that moment. The second your mood depends on whether someone reads you correctly. They now own a small piece of you. They do not know they have it. You just handed it over for free. Epictetus saw this clearly a long time ago. He said some things belong to us. Our thoughts, our choices, what we decide to value. And some things never did. Our body, our possessions, our reputation. That last one surprises people. Reputation was never yours to begin with. What people think of you, how they size you up, whether they get you wrong or right. None of it is something you actually control. So every bit of energy spent trying to manage it, that is energy stolen from the only thing you actually do control. Becoming the person they got wrong about. You are in a meeting. Someone talks over you. The old version of you spends the next hour rehearsing the perfect comeback. Drafts the email. Deletes it. Drafts it again. The version you are trying to become notices the feeling, lets it sit there for a second, and goes back to work. Not because the feeling does not matter. Just because spending yourself on it does not get you anywhere. It took me a long time to actually believe this. You cannot lose a fight you never agreed to be in. The moment you stop treating their opinion as something you owe a response to, you are already standing somewhere they cannot touch. Now there is a part of this most people never get to. Being underestimated is not just something you survive with dignity. For the right kind of mind, it is an actual weapon. History is full of proof of this, if you know where to look. Think about what low expectations actually hand you. When someone underestimates you, they stop watching closely. You have already been filed away, assessed, found unremarkable. Case closed, as far as they are concerned. Which means you get to move freely. Build quietly. Fail in private and try again. Without anyone noting it. High expectations are a form of surveillance. Low expectations are a form of freedom. The Stoics had a phrase for this: strategic retreat. Not running away, not avoiding the fight, but choosing which fights are even worth your attention. When you stop to correct someone who underestimates you, you have chosen a fight that gets you nothing. Even if you win it, you have already shown your hand too early. You traded the advantage of surprise for the comfort of being seen correctly right now. And right now almost never matters. What matters is later, when the work is finished. When the results are sitting there. Impossible to argue with. No defense required, because the evidence already made your case. Every commander who ever won against a stronger enemy understood something simple. Whoever controls the information controls the field. So let them think less of you. Let them stop watching. Let their attention drift somewhere else. And build the thing they never saw coming. There is a pattern that shows up in almost every person history remembers as genuinely formidable. They spoke less than the people around them. Not because they had less to say, Often they had far more. But because they understood something about words and power that most people never figure out. Every word you speak is a small withdrawal from a reserve. The reserve of mystery, of depth, of whatever potential other people project onto you when they do not fully know what you contain. When you over-explain yourself, you empty that reserve completely. There is nothing left to wonder about. The impression you made is final. But when you say less than people expect, something interesting happens inside their head. They start filling the silence with their own assumptions. And human beings, when they are uncertain about someone, almost always assume more than the reality actually contains. Silence creates space. And people fill space with meaning. Seneca wrote about this with his usual bluntness. He said to keep close to those who will make you better. But that kind of closeness takes discrimination. And discrimination takes real observation. And observation only works if you are quiet enough to do it properly. You cannot watch a room clearly while you are busy performing in it. You cannot assess people honestly while you are worried about how they are assessing you. The person who talks the least in a room is almost always the one who understands it the most completely. And that kind of understanding, the kind that comes from actually paying attention instead of managing how you are perceived, is a form of power that no resume, no title, and no clever comeback will ever replace. Let us be honest about something first. Not everyone who gets underestimated is secretly extraordinary. Being overlooked is not proof of hidden greatness by itself. But there is a specific kind of person who attracts underestimation again and again, and if you recognize yourself in this, it tells you something worth knowing. The person who gets chronically underestimated usually shares a few things in common. They do not announce what they are working on. They feel no real need to update everyone on their progress. They can sit with unfinished, unacknowledged work for a long time without needing someone to confirm it matters. They do not react much when dismissed. Not because they feel nothing, but because they have trained themselves to let the feeling pass through without aiming it at whoever caused it. They ask more questions. Then they make statements, which reads as uncertainty to people who confuse confidence with certainty. Really it is just a mind that knows how much it does not know yet. And they care more about results than recognition. Which means they will take the path that looks unimpressive from the outside if that path actually gets them where they are going faster. Marcus Aurelius wrote something about this that still holds up. Never think something is to your advantage if it forces you to break a promise, lose your self-respect, or compromise the work itself just to look good in someone's eyes. The person who would water down their work just to impress someone who already underestimated them has lost something far more valuable than that one impression. They have lost the thing the work was actually for. We have covered what not to do with the energy that shows up when someone underestimates you. Do not spend it correcting people. Do not spend it performing for an audience that already made up its mind. Do not spend it building a case for your worth in front of someone who is not even ready to hear it. So the real question becomes what you do with that energy instead. And the answer the Stoics landed on is simpler than most people expect. You give it back to the work. Every moment you would have spent defending yourself becomes a moment you spend getting better. Every conversation you would have had trying to convince someone of your potential becomes an hour you spend actually proving it, whether they ever see it or not. This is not passive. It is not giving up on being recognized one day. It is the behavior of someone who finally understood that recognition is something that follows the work, not something you have to chase ahead of it. That respect gets built through evidence over time, not through winning one argument in one room. The Stoics called this living according to nature, and one of the most basic truths of human nature is this: people believe what they watch happen over months far more than what they hear in a single conversation. You cannot talk your way into being respected by someone who already decided not to respect you. But you can work your way there quietly, without needing their attention at any point along the way. And then one day, not as some dramatic reveal but as a slow pile-up of proof, the gap between what they assumed about you and what you actually became gets too obvious for them to keep ignoring. That moment costs you nothing to create. It shows up on its own, as a natural result of what you chose to do with your time while they were busy underestimating you. There is a question that comes up naturally at this point. If the whole strategy is silence, patience, and building without performing, when does that actually end? When do you let them finally see what you built? When do you stop letting them underestimate you? The honest answer is both simpler and harder than people want to hear. You do not decide when to reveal yourself. The work decides that for you. The moment you have built something that cannot be misread, that moment announces itself without any help from you. The evidence becomes so complete that the old story about you falls apart on its own, not because you argued it down but because reality stopped agreeing with it. And when that happens, something occurs that never happens when you force people to see you through argument or performance. The respect actually sticks. When you convince someone to respect you by correcting how they underestimated you, you have won something fragile. They will take it back the second you disappoint them, because it was never built on real evidence. To begin with, it was built on how well you argued in one moment. But when proof piles up slowly, when the work speaks without you turning up the volume on it, when people arrive at respect through their own eyes instead of your insistence, that respect becomes part of how they actually see the world. It does not need constant maintenance. It is just true now. Epictetus was a slave. No credentials, no property, no platform, nothing society used back then to measure a person's worth. And he became one of the most influential philosophers human history has ever produced. Not because he argued for his own value, because the depth of his thinking shone consistently over years through what he said and how he lived, made the argument for him in a way that has outlasted every single person who ever looked at him and saw nothing. He did not need their recognition while he was alive to Here is what I actually want you to walk away with. The people who underestimate you are not your enemies. They are not obstacles standing in your way. Most of the time they are not even relevant to the outcome you are building toward. They are just people who do not have access to the evidence yet. And your job was never to hand it to them early. Your job is to finish building it completely. Let them respect you in public when it actually serves you to let them. Let them underestimate you in private when they think you cannot hear it. Let them form their opinions, make their assessments. File you away wherever takes the least effort to maintain. And then go back to the work. Quietly. Completely. Without waiting for their permission or needing their recognition at any point along the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that has stayed with me since the first time I read it. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. But he also lived by something he never wrote down directly. If it is right, do it anyway. Regardless of who is watching. Regardless of who already decided what you are capable of. The work is its own justification. The result is its own argument. And a life built on quiet, consistent, unperformed effort does not need a witness to prove it happened. Let them underestimate you. The ones who actually matter will stop eventually. And the ones who never do were never worth convincing in the first place.